Actually, I'm going to direct my questions to Dr. Einfalt, but any of you, if you're willing to provide an insight, I'd be happy to hear that as well. You mentioned two aspects of this issue that I want to unpack a little further. H.R. 971, which would allow small independent pharmacies or suppliers to band together to basically compete for these contracts, is a bill that I'm a co-sponsor of. Let's talk about the potential impact that could have in addressing some of the issues that you all raised. Secondly, you talked about the cost of accreditation being between $8,000 to $20,000. I'm assuming there's no process currently at the federal level to accept state accreditation as which would allow for waiving the federal accreditation process. In other words, if a state meets the federal requirements, you're certified by the state, then that would be acceptable at the federal level, if I'm understanding this correctly. That might be a way in which we could address that particular issue of this, but I wanted to hear your comments on it as well as anyone else who might have insight into this.
Currently, what you're speaking of, there is no plan that I know of to allow states to certify and then thereby qualify them for CMS or to participate then at that point. I do know that hospitals in the state of Nebraska can utilize the Department of Health to acquire accreditation or certification, and then that certification can be passed on so that they can serve Medicare beneficiaries. So that does exist. So if there's a route for doing that, certainly with pharmacies, that would be a possibility, because I don't believe there's a state in the around that doesn't license their pharmacies and also license their pharmacists. I think that's all in place and in each of the individual states to take care of that.
Are those accreditation standards fairly uniform across the country, or best do they vary greatly? Do you know?
I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I would suspect there's some variation just from what I know of pharmacy law from a couple different states.
And there might not be exact applicability in terms of being a part of the approved for bidding process, but nonetheless, that might be something that could be examined to see if there is reasonable applicability at given a state licensure, meaning you've set up certain quality standards that would then apply for your.
I believe that would be something to look at, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The second issue regarding the ability to cooperate with other independent pharmacies or providers in order to be placed in a better competitive bidding position, is that would that approach potentially allow for greater flexibility or put smaller independent pharmacies as well as suppliers in a greater competitive position?
Listening to the CMS testimony earlier, I believe that already exists, the ability to band together to submit a bid in the DME area. My concern with H.R. 971, and the reason H.R. 971 came into being or was proposed, deals with what Mr. Gonzalez was speaking to earlier, and that is anything that the federal government does in implementing accreditation or standards immediately flows to the private sector. And that's what's going to have a huge impact on rural pharmacies, particularly in Nebraska, is their inability to deal with the private sector and the pharmacy benefit managers.
So this is more of a reimbursement issue with private insurance?
Well, the impact is going to have there, because those standards that are taken from the federal level into the private sector, they're going to just say you have to be accredited by CMS in order to participate now in Medicare Part D and probably then all the rest of the commercial contracts that we have. 93% of our business is governed by those pharmacy benefit managers. So if they do that, I'm done. I don't have accreditation with CMS. I don't plan to go after it. We can probably survive without. That's a smaller part of our business, so we'll figure out a way to try to get around that and not sell DME. But the bigger problem is that now that standard is in the prescription arena, and when that comes in, we're done. We're gone. There is no negotiating, the pharmacy benefit managers come in and tell you what's going to happen. And we're done at that point. And that's where the problem really gets serious in Nebraska as far as access.
So the two issues are unrelated on the surface, but after implementation, they would be inextricably intertwined.
That is correct.
Okay. Anybody else have any input on that particular issue? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.